everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Another Monday, the trio is here. We're all set. We're at the top of the league and all that kind of good stuff. So it should be a very happy Monday for us all. Even the weather is not too bad outside for me to bitch about. It could be a lot worse. It is almost middle of December, 2 weeks to go before Christmas. Gally, are you done with your shopping?
No.
You started
I mean, yes. Actually, yes. I am done with my shopping because I don't really shop much. Kelly does all the shopping, and I tell her to buy whatever she wants for herself all year round, and that way I feel like I'm husband of the year daily.
He has found the shortcut. Bigler over here, kidnapped at a hotel in an undisclosed location, is with us. What's going on, Bigler?
Oh man, I'm here. I've been on a plane all day. I feel like I've just basically been put in a dryer and put on tumble for 4 hours, but I'm here.
Have you done your Christmas shopping?
Yes, I ordered a couple things last night just to get ordered for when I'm here, and will be on my doorstep when I get back, and I'm all done for the year.
God damn, man. I guess I should get started since you guys have all pretty much all done. But similar to like Gally, for the most part, Angie organizes everybody else. I just got to worry about Angie. So like I just give the approval and the like confirmation of that's a good idea and stuff like that. As she's like, what do you think of this? And then the rest of it is all on her. And then I have to get something for her though. So that's in the works. That's why, my laziness kind of like getting to stuff takes a while. This is why I have excellent news for you guys. Just the best news ever is BJ is on his way back. And he has actually submitted this week's trivia question. So I'm nobody's happier than me to have BJ back in action as the numbers nerd over here. So here is this week's trivia. So right now, currently in the Premier League season, there are two teams, Brighton and Luton Town, that have not yet had a clean sheet. And three teams with only one so far, Burnley, Sheffield, and West Ham. Here's your trivia question. What's the fewest clean sheets a club has recorded over a complete Premier League season, and which club did it? Bittler! Let's start with you. Buy something. Gally is already extremely confused.
I'm pretty sure I know that I get it wrong.
I'll just throw something ridiculous out there. I'll go over the course of the year. I'll say one clean sheet over the entire course of the year, and it was Huddersfield Town.
Damn. Okay.
I'll say three clean sheets, Norwich.
It is actually two clean sheets. West Brom Albion. And the funny thing is, and this is where it comes in. So West Bromwich Albion, that season, which is the 2010-2011 season, where did they finish? They had only two clean sheets. I'm trying to get you guys some kind of points.
They finished in the top half.
11th. Close. They were finished. Yeah. They finished 11th.
I just said 11th.
Did you say 11th? No, you didn't. You said top half, didn't you?
No, and then I literally said you made a face, so I went no 11th. No, I'm kidding. You were like close. I was like 11th.
Yes, they finished 11th, even though they only had two clean sheets the entire season. Surround sound. Chris is in the house. Good evening is right. Yes, a lot to talk about. Obviously, the boys are on top. Alan is with us as well. Probably a lot warmer Houston than I got going over here. As we gather around and celebrate the top of the league thing. How unreal is it, Bickler, that, I don't know if anybody would put money on the fact that December 11th, Liverpool would be on top of the league.
I just don't. I don't know what you guys, but like I don't even really enjoy it because I'm like it feels like we just kind of like stumbled into it and like I guess we're here, like, so we'll see what happens, like, but it feels really strange because it doesn't feel like it doesn't, even if you look at the form, right, like we're literally the hottest team on the table on the form chart. It's like us, Villa, I think it's like what Bournemouth, and like I don't feel like we've been anywhere near those teams in terms of like fluency and attacking, and like we just have basically been scraping these games out. But hey, you don't get style points, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and that's the weird part of it, I guess, because it does not feel like it based on maybe how painful the performances have been sometimes, or the wins and how difficult they've come. Um, Bickler, yeah, they the police are here. I think Bickler had to go. But Gally, we talked about it last week, right after the Fulham game, and I know we talked about it in the panel as well with the boys in terms of we were talking about Arsenal kind of like scraping wins until like like recently, right? And in terms of do we look at it as there he is. He's back in action. Do we look at it as a sign of a title-winning team that is getting 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, whether it's ugly or not, finding ways to win, or do you jump once, jump twice, in our case, 3, 4, 5 times, and then eventually fall off?
So I think it has to be a mixture of both. It can't be this way all year long. If you're the cardiac kids all year, eventually you will run out of the ability for last minute equalizers and then 90th minute stoppage time winners, right? Like the Newcastle game was one thing. It was like way the heck back out there, right? I think the important key is that we build on it with better performances. At this time of year, I have no problem with stringing together ugly ass performances and getting results every 3-4 days. I do think though, like we're going to have to start playing more fluent football, and we're going to have to tactically catch up to our deficiencies defensively. We've been talking about it here for 18 months. This team wins this Premier League if they stop making Ali have to be worldly every single weekend for us to continue to squeak out results. Because I think right now, if we had an average keeper, we'd be 6 points worse off in the standings. And I think that, to me, and I think at least, and that's kind of where we have to get to a point where when we need him to be world class, he's world class. But that we defend as a unit, that we do our jobs. We solve the midfield balance. There's still a lot of questions about this team, but it is December 11th. We're top of the table, and we haven't played our best football yet. And I think if you had given me that in August, I would have signed off on it in a heartbeat.
And that's the thing. Chris says we need to solve the number 6 problem, which I do want to get to. But I think, Bickler, you look at the season, right? I mean, like Gally was saying, this time of year with all the congested thing, just getting the 3 points is important. When we usually start the season, you're like, hey, before the team gels, it's important to get those 3 points and get the winning points. That's what we say. At the end of the season, we say, hey, this time of year, how you play doesn't matter. You just got to get the 3 points. So it doesn't really even freaking matter at the end of the day, as long as we get the 3 points.
No, I guess when you put it like that, it really doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, which is very much how I work in real life with my professional life too. Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares that the client's live. It's the fact or how the client got live, right? It's the fact that I got them live by deadline. Like, they didn't see all the other like backhanded conversations I had to have with people on their team. But like, yeah, no, it's very much like that in real life, right? I mean, where you are, the results are what matters, right? And how you get there, that journey in between sort of like really is not the story that gets told, right? I mean, that's not what anybody remembers. Like we get to the end of the year and we're 1 point up and we win this thing. Nobody's talking about this, like in terms of like how did you make it through half a year not knowing like what you were doing in the midfield and not having a 6? We're not talking about that. So I guess for us as supporters who follow this thing and live it and breathe it every day, like we want that stability, that peace of mind, right? But I think Gally kind of hit it on the head. We're like, if things are this much of a mess, if things feel this on fire, and we're at the top of the table, that's a pretty hopeful situation to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's, nobody expected this, let's be honest. And I know it does help that, obviously City is far from where they would normally be in terms of, like loss of points and stuff like that. But Gally, I mean, that's the thing, you're getting the wins despite the problems. Like Bickler says, you win a title like this, nobody goes back and says, you guys barely beat Sheffield. You guys barely beat. It almost, becomes that team when you look back, you become the mentality monsters and you go back and look and you say, that team always found a way to win. That's the only way the team will be remembered. It wouldn't be like, oh, but the center back issue or the goalie had to bail him and stuff. It would be remembered as that team knew how to grind out results and get the 3 points.
Yeah, nobody remembers. I mean, no one remembers much about it except for maniacal celebrations, but nobody remembers like Chelsea playing some of the worst, boringest football that's ever been played when Antonio Conte won the league with Chelsea. They don't. Nobody remembers that last Mo title with Chelsea, which was brutal. But like, why did they happen, right? They happened because they had the players and they were okay with doing it. And what do we remember them as? We remember Chelsea winning the title, Eden Hazard being player of the year, and, Costa scoring big goals. Like I just feel like history is written based on who wins and who loses. And I know it sounds stupid, but it's like what team wins it and who's the loser, right? Like we always have like the pros and cons. We don't talk about how wonderful of a performance we played like the years we finished second and we played the most beautiful football I've ever seen with our front three, but we came up short to City. No one talks about that, right? They talk about finishing a point behind City. So for me, if we want to be a team that wins titles, this is how you do it. You balance performance for trophies. And I think sometimes if you want to play perfect football all the time, you'll always start your best players. You'll always, right? You'll always play your darlings. Sometimes you just need to rotate and grind it out with a guy who can just get the job done. And I think they can do that now. I don't think they were equipped to do it 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
And the odd thing is, when you look back at the season, I don't remember much of the Villa game, which ended up being probably one of our easiest wins of the year, a home win. I mean, maybe because I expected a
3-0.
challenge ended up being very smooth. We don't remember those games at all. When you look back, you remember the Newcastle game, you remember the Fulham game and stuff like that. I don't know, because of the torture it puts us through or the fact that it comes in late or whatever. But at the end of the day, the 3 points is the most important part, and this team gets it. I mean, 11 wins, 4 draws, 1 loss, and we know how shady that loss is. It just feels unreal that this team would be unbeaten if it wasn't for good process boys fiasco. So, I mean, you got to be happy with that while you look at it and say, okay, like, how do you improve on this and build on this? Because obviously we're going into, you have United, Arsenal, and stuff like that, a bunch of tough games coming up in a congested schedule. So, Bickler, I guess from this game right here, we got the win. It was painful, and we'll talk some details. But the biggest thing I think to me was, it's December. We're approaching January, right? You look at the squad. You look at Kwanzaa playing there, Endo playing there, both of which probably did not leave us very impressed. I didn't think Kwanzaa played that bad personally, but definitely like with Endo. So what do you take from that game in terms of what the squad needs, and what do you think the squad will do?
I'm still stuck on Due Process Boys, which sounds like the next right-wing political activist group.
I was like, you've been laughing this entire time. I'm like, what?
Oh man. Yeah. And Endo wasn't great. I'll tell you what I don't think helps Endo is Soboslai next to him.
Yeah.
I think this was not the midfield. It was the 6 I wanted to see. It just wasn't the midfield I wanted to see. And yeah, I think Endo struggled. I think it definitely, I think it was a deserved hook at halftime. I just thought that it was a match where he seemed to really struggle with the way the team set up. I think that like having him there next to Soboslai and Kwanzaa is probably a lot to ask anybody to do. But I did think that I think we got to solve the six. I still think Endo is part of the solution. I think that, like we've been talking about Andre for what feels like 7 years now. So, like, if that happens, great. I still think that dude is at least 30, given the mustache on him. But I think, like, that's definitely, like, something that we should – the six isn't obvious, right? The six is something that we need to solve. I would still rather see Endo in there than McAllister. And I know that's an unpopular opinion. I think Endo needs that run. I think he needs a run of consistent games next to the same group. Like, I feel like Endo's been put in a spot where he gets spot started, but the people around him are always different. And I don't think that helps a new player in a new league.
Which I agree with that. I think it does. Like, that trio was definitely not a trio that helped the six that's sitting at
Right.
like the bottom of that gang. I definitely understand that, but I guess my concern, Gally, is the fact that he was clearly the target for Palace whenever he got the ball, and he does show that when pressured, he's not as smooth on the ball. Mind you, McAllister has done a lot of like passing errors and stuff like that too, playing that position. But you still, I don't know about you. I personally have, for example, more faith in terms of him controlling and keeping position compared to Endo. Like, watching Endo, what is your thoughts after that game?
Well, I mean, if I was judging it all on that game, it'd be pretty poor thoughts. He had a rough 45 minutes. I think, to Paul's point, once again, I don't think it helps when you're playing next to midfielders, two of which who do nothing to help you or defend in any way. So I feel like he was kind of on an island by himself for large chunks of that match, where Gravenberch and Soboslai just want to go do their own thing. They do nothing alongside him, and he's basically left to basically cover a ton of area. And I think that we don't want to criticize those players because they're silky smooth, and when they do great things, they look great. I think Endo's problem is he's too slow on the ball, and the league is just too quick for him. And I think you've been saying it from day one. I've been saying give him a chance. If Crystal Palace can target you with Will Hughes, like if Casper is literally running you off the pitch, it's kind of a scary place. And to me, it's not like Rodri was closing him down or Bernardo Silva was closing him down in tight spots. It was Will bleeping Hughes. And I think that's where it makes me nervous. So I do think you have to protect him and start him in spots. That makes sense. But I also think you have to start to play a balanced midfield and not just your most talented midfield. And I feel like we're going out with 5 attackers every match and then wondering why nobody defends.
But that's the thing I go back to. And like I say, I'm totally agreeing with you guys. I don't think that midfield was constructed very well. I mean, you just can't be like, I'll put 2 offensive and then 1 defensive behind. It just did not gel, and those guys did not help him. Do you think, is that the reason why there are those? Because it feels like Bigler, he takes almost like 1 extra touch on every single time he gets the ball. Is that because the other 2 guys are not close enough for him to have an outlet, or it's just the pace of the game and he can't keep up with it or not used to it?
I think that's just the difference between the Bundesliga and the Premier League, to be perfectly honest. I think especially in this side, we're looking for that quick counter out to the wide areas, either Diaz or Mo. Like that's gotta, when he gets that, he's gotta hit it first time. And I think that'll come. Like, I know that he's like past the developmental age, but I do think like there's an adjustment period with any switch of any league. And I think that probably, I would argue that jumping into the Premier League is probably the biggest of all of them for most players, right? So I think he'll get there. I just don't love him in this midfield trio, but I think he will get there. And I do agree with Gally that he's a step slow on this thing. But, you know, we've seen this with a lot of our midfielders that come in and they either figure it out or they don't. And that's going to be the big question, is can he figure it out?
Can he figure it out, Gally? I mean, is it just a matter of run of games? Is it just a matter of maybe having him play next to Mac for once? Which I guess he partially did, but Mac was hurt half the time. But like him and Mac there at the same time, obviously Soboslai, which I want to get to afterwards. But is it a matter of his midfield partners, or I mean, it's not like the guy cannot control the ball. So is it a matter of him just getting used to the pace slowly but surely?
I think it is. I think you have to set Endo up for success. And I think you set Endo up for success by putting players around him that work well and that his skill sets work off of. And I don't think at this point Klopp knows what his actual best midfield three is. We say we think he knows what it is. I don't think he does, because he's tried every ounce of it. He's tried every inch of it in every direction.
I think the problem with it is that it leaves out, the problem that Klopp is finding is I think the midfield that works for Endo leaves his two favorite players out. And I think it's like, and I'm talking about Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, and I'm sure you could put McAllister in that favorites group, but I think this best midfield with Endo is Curtis Jones and Mac.
So Mac at the 6 and Curtis and Szoboszlai?
Mac on the right, Curtis on the left, Endo in the 6. That's the best trio that fit for Endo. It just is
for Endo. Okay.
For Endo, it's just a midfield trio that I think Klopp in a situation that makes his naughty bits tingle a little, because his two favorite players are out of that midfield trio.
But so, by the way, welcome aboard to Philip and Nicholas joining the broadcast. Welcome along, guys. Always good to have like new people chiming in, letting us know that we're nuts. But so, Gally, here's the thing I go with that though, is if you have to get your number 6 surrounded by certain people so he can play his number 6, is that a number 6? Because we never said this with Fab. We never said Fab needs this guy next to him. Is it just better to get an actual 6 that can keep up with this pace? Obviously, we don't know if that's Andre, because he's coming from the Brazilian league as well.
Yeah, well, I think there is part of that. I'll tell you this right now. I don't think that there is any player that is going to succeed fully doing that job if Gravenberch and Szoboszlai are going to both try to attack the way they do and bomb forward from the right and the left and do very little to no defensive work. It's one thing to run. It's another thing to run nowhere and do nothing. And I'm sorry. At some point, someone's going to have to point out something Szoboszlai's done in the last month other than just get lauded in social media for how great he is and how wonderful of a job he does, and honestly get 90 minutes of run out every single time he's on the pitch. Because if I'm Curtis Jones, it just doesn't make sense.
It's a nice head of hair, though, Gally. Nice head of hair.
It is a nice head of hair. I
Angie has already shot it down. Sorry, the chin is a no-go.
No dimple chin. Okay, all right.
Yeah, fine. No dimple chin. The moment that we started, I remember it was a morning show. I'm like, yeah, Angie's not gonna like him. And then like I showed the Angie, and she was like, no, the chin. I'm like, bingo.
Isn't that big in Turkey? I feel like
that's why you keep
people. This is the chin.
I was just gonna say, this is the chin. We keep this thing covered so my wife will love me.
No, actually, I don't have that deficiency or whatever, deficiency, whatever.
I didn't want to go down the road of that, and I don't disagree with you. I think part of Endo's issue is that he has deficiencies to his game, but that's why he was a $10 million buy who was bought, in my opinion, to be a squad player and to fill a role. I don't think he was bought to be the starting number 6 for our club in the biggest of matches. We need to figure that out, though, and to be honest, it might end up being the answer none of us wanted it to be. It might end up being Trent not because he's the best 6 we have, because Gomez is a better right back, even playing in his inverted position, and he's earning himself some minutes. And Klopp clearly, it's 2 games in a row he's done it at some point during the match. So I think we're going to see more of this. I don't love it either, because we've witnessed it already with Trent just going to sleep and watching guys run right past him. We've seen it for years now, so I'm not advocating for it. But Klopp has shown it now in back-to-back matches when it's needed. So I don't think we're breaking the bank to buy a 6 in January. I really don't. So I think this is what we got for the rest of the way. We got to figure it out.
So how dare you?
How dare you is right. Philip says, Sobo has done well at first. And yeah, I mean, it was like he started. So is he wearing down in some ways, all this running around? Because here's the thing. Yes, he does run. And yeah, I mean, he is in like good situations and stuff. I think his defending is like typical of an attacker defending. I always say that there's a difference between a defender defending, attacker defending. He's basically he's only defending to win the ball so he can attack, not necessarily to help the defense. And there's a huge difference. Like when Mo comes back, he's actually helping defend and playing as a defender. That game when we played against City, he was coming back to defend. I feel like whenever Szoboszlai is helping defense, it's just so that he can get it and we can start attacking, not necessarily to stop the defending. And there are a lot of times where he almost gambles and takes risks and stuff like that that ends up being costly on a wing that's already shaky the way it is. And yeah, before we get into the strength thing that gives me a heart attack every time we talk about it, why do you think the dip in Szoboszlai's form, Bickler, aside from the chin? Like, what is it that's not working for him?
I just think you can't. Like, I think there's a balance, right? Like, these guys have to get a run of games where they're consistently seeing the pitch and getting that fitness and like getting gelled in. But like, I feel like he's just had the legs ran off him. I feel like this is like what we saw with what we've seen in the past with Robbo, but without the excuse that we don't have other fullbacks. Right? Like, I mean, because there's depth behind them, right? There's only one Mo. There's only one guy that you can consistently put out there and just run to death. And, like, I don't feel like you can do that with him. On top of that, he's captaining his national team and going through all those games. I just feel like it's too much for him. I feel like we have not done a good enough job of rotating him through. But that being said, I couldn't tell you. I don't know if we've, like, messed with the parts around him too much, because I will tell you, when he was at his best, we had the same midfield three every game he was out when he was at his best. So I don't know if it's just like, you know, not having the same parts around him all the time, but yeah, it's been a pretty significant dip for a while now. And I wish I had the answer. I don't.
Is it in some ways that's, I mean, I agree with that. I think that's a big part of it. When you had Mac, Jones, I think Szoboszlai was probably at his best. And is that because Szoboszlai and Gravenberch in some ways are too much alike in the way that they're more focused on attacking Galley, and that's like kind of like their strength, and that's they want to get going on that as soon as possible. Whereas Jones over the years has really matured to understand the value of possession, and obviously Mac has kind of like always been there.
Yeah, I think that's really why we saw the drop-off. I think you can almost chart back the drop-off in Szoboszlai's really, like, top performances to when Jones got hurt and got the red card, then got hurt and basically fell out of the starting lineup. And I think when Gravenberch comes in, it's too much of like for like on both sides. I still think that Szoboszlai, deep down, Paul mentioned this, I think it was last week or the week before, I think deep down, Szoboszlai is still more of an attacker than he is a midfielder, especially a midfield at a place like Liverpool where you're asked. I mean, we're replacing Jordan Henderson in this formation with Dominic Szoboszlai. And anyone who thought that that was going to lead to all kinds of, like, successful, like, oh, now we got a midfielder who can score. You're like, yeah. And we used to have a midfielder who did everything else that no one else on the pitch wanted to do. And we had another guy on the other side that ran all day long and never lost possession. Yeah. While the guy, you know, defended the defense so everyone could go forward. And I feel like the tactics have shifted. And I still think January could be a really telling time, because I have this feeling that in January, we're going to see a lot of Szoboszlai on the right and McAllister behind him in the right midfield, where we kind of talked about him playing. And I do think that all of this comes back to, as soon as you take, God, I hope Kazi's not listening, but as soon as you take Jones out of this midfield, it becomes a lot less unbalanced and a lot less predictable. And not predictable in a bad way. The type of predictable Jurgen Klopp needs, which is he knows his guys know where to be and what job they're supposed to do. And I think there's just a little bit too much uncertainty with where Gravenberch and Szoboszlai take up positions on the pitch to have both of them out there at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Brian says he tries to make big plays when it's not unnecessary. And honestly, I don't know who exactly he's talking about, Gravenberch or Szoboszlai, but it applies to both. So we'll take it as both. But I guess is that the biggest problem, Bickler? It's almost like I was mentioning this, I think, after maybe was it the Fulham game, that we've gotten a little bit almost like too creative and attacking in midfield when we have Soboslai and Gravenberch out there, even regardless of who is behind them. It's almost like a bit too adventurous to protect the back line, especially now that you have issues in depth in center back.
Yeah, I mean, either way you chop it, when you have a starting 11 where half of them are brand new, it's going to be a huge adjustment period. Like we talked about not having Jordan Henderson there, and then like it's not a coincidence that we don't have Jordan Henderson there and we spent the majority of the year talking about Trent, right? Yeah. Like that's not a coincidence. Like you got a teenage in the back line. I still think the 6 is the heart of this thing because, like, for me, when I look at this lineup, the biggest thing for me was, like, I would have had Gomez in here and I would have started a young Bradley at fullback. And, like, when I look at that, but, like, you're not able to do that because clearly Klopp wants the flexibility to bring Gomez off the bench because he wants, in case he can't run Endo for more than 60, in case he wants to move Trent up. So it all kind of hinges on that 6. But, I mean, this entire system that was predicated on winning the ball in the final third and attacking from wide areas and defending with 11. And, like, I think for the first time in a long time, you're looking at a starting 11 that isn't capable cohesively of doing that. Like, these aren't players that have done that before. I mean, even when you look at what Luis Diaz came in lighting the world on fire, and we talk about how, he's maybe not as clinical as Sadio Mane. He maybe doesn't work as hard tracking back as Sadio Mane, but he sure does a lot of that. He sure does come back and do a lot of work in midfield, right? Yeah. Mo, we always talk about Mo doing that. Gakpo, when he's in, can do that. But, like, Nunez doesn't do that. Soboslai doesn't do that. Gravenberch doesn't do that. You've got your second-string left back. You've got a teenager at center back. Like, those are 5 players out of 11 that are serious question marks on what that system is predicated on doing. And I just think that, like, when we look at that and we wonder why we look like trash, I mean, maybe we just need to be more realistic about it. I think there's going to be a big period of fluctuation here where we've got to figure out, all right, so these guys don't naturally do what that system's asked to do. So what is their role? What do we want? So what do we really want Soboslai to be? Can he sit on top of Trent? Is that a reasonable ask? Is he life after Mo Salah? Is that what he is?
That's
like, right? I mean, what do we do with Gravenberch? Gravenberch traditionally has played in a double pivot, and he's not in a double pivot now. So are we making him more of an attacking mid? Like, there are big questions. Like, that's what makes me nervous, that there are big questions not only about what the system is designed to do anymore, but what these players are going to be developmentally for it. So, I mean, there's just a lot to sort out.
I don't know if it's just an adjustment period of, these guys, not Gravenberch as much, but definitely Szoboszlai was probably not asked to defend as much or as intensely as, we wanted to. And like I say, you see, it's not laziness because obviously he's putting the miles, but in terms of like intensity and when it should be done, which I'm going to get to Nunez because I think in terms of the when, he's the one that gets it wrong the most. Nicholas says Diaz is a workhorse, just lacking some position on the left side. I think with Diaz, you can't question the work rate. I sometimes wonder with Diaz is sometimes he starts from the left and then he'll cut in, and then before you know it, he starts dribbling and he's on the right wing. We're like, bro, what are you doing here? Like, he just like loses what he was doing, and he just like to me, like he feels like a kid playing out there trying to make things happen. But let me go back to Kwanzaa. What did you think of his performance? Because I did not watch that game, Gally, thinking, oh, this kid is not going to work over here. Like, that was the least of the concerns, I thought.
I didn't feel that way. I thought the kid's very assured. I think that what comes through more and more the more I watch Liverpool at the back is that it's amazing what happens when Virgil gets back to being the best defender in the world. Everyone around him looks really, really good. It's amazing. Matip's had this like great resurgence because, well, Virgil got back to being really good. Even at times, you're like, wow, you can see like even Kanate, who's still having some nightmare of moments. You'd be like, oh, well, that was a pretty assured performance. And you're like, well, Virgil did bail him out 2 or 3 times. It's got Tsimikas looking like a left back.
By the way, how Kanate did not get a yellow card that game is beyond me.
Oh, but that's up there with some of the conspiracy stuff out there right now too. The Kanate not getting a yellow, I mean, he could have saw 2 different yellows, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I thought once again, he looked leggy and slow. I think that Virgil really, really does look like almost, he's never going to be back to top level, but he's almost there pre-injury. And he makes everyone around him so much better. And he just instilled the confidence in the kid. There were a couple times, first half, he was a little shaky. All in all, I thought the kid did really well. He gave up a bad foul on a play that he had to make a tackle on, and he just got the guy's leg, and it's a penalty. That's, I mean, you're going to make mistakes. If you got to defend in the box, you're going to make mistakes. I didn't put that all on him. I thought he had a good game for a kid.
I thought so,
I mean, he shouldn't be playing.
Victor, what did you make of it? Because I know, like, do you think he was subbed up because, we were not going to get 90 out of Konate? This is what we were going to get, so it was already part of the plan? Or is because we had to attack and we trust Konate more with the ball in his feet? Like, why did you think that sub came about?
I mean, the only thing that I can think that makes sense is that, Palace in their current form isn't necessarily knocking them in. So you see an opportunity to put a kid in and get his feet under him because you're going to use him, right? With Matip out, that he's going to be rotated in or out, whether he starts, whether he's off the bench, however we use Kwanzaa, he's going to get substantial minutes. So put him in now, establish some rhythm with him against a side that's not necessarily the biggest threat going forward right now. And I think that's probably the rationale behind it. I think you were onto something with Konate. And that is I think that's the elephant in the room, right? Like we talked about how Konate was the future. We've talked about this for a long time. And now it kind of feels like Konate's like a year or two away from getting phased out of this side if he can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's odd, and I don't know why that really is. Is it because of the Trent ordeal? Have we messed up another career trying to get Trent to be more creative here, Gally? Because it almost like coincides with that to me. Like
I do love the idea that we did all of this to get Trent more creative when he just has the all-time record for assists for a fullback and he's under the age of 25. He had to get more creative and he was breaking records. Like, this is just us trying to keep up with the Joneses, in my opinion. I do think that part of Konate's problem is, I think part of why we moved Trent into the midfield is this arrogance that Konate could make up all that space. His skills led to it. And I think what was really good about Konate was when he could be the powerful guy, literally like the one who marked the big striker, who, used his physical presence, leaned on strikers all match long. And he was a physical force, and the person had a choice. I either am going to go at Virgil van Dijk or I'm going to deal with this man of a mountain or mountain of a man, right? And then the choice is like, shit, you know what I'm going to do? Not play that hard. Like, that is basically like the Divock Origi playbook right there. Like, I got an idea. Pasta. But like, it doesn't, it just, sorry. It just didn't, it doesn't feed to what we need Konate to do. And I think the problem is we bought players again. We buy players for systems and then we change that system. And I feel like this inverted Trent experiment has ultimately weakened about 2 to 3 different positions on the pitch. And it's all on the right-hand side, which leads to the most important player on the pitch, the guy at the head of the right. So, like, this comes back. I know we'll talk about Darwin. I just think these are some of the problems. Like, I think sometimes the Darwin Nunez conundrum, which is he misses a lot, but we score a lot when he's on the pitch, is actually talked about more than some of the real problems in this side. Like, they can't defend when they're not in possession.
But I think that does start with Nunez. And I think that's what I go back to with him. I don't even know why it's a conundrum at this point, Bickler, because I think it's very clear cut that we play better defensively. And I understand like his numbers when he's in there and stuff like that, but especially against teams that sit back, he has no room to run behind. So you basically take one of his biggest strengths, which is speed, away, because there's nowhere to run behind. And he's not good on interplay, which is what you need. And then he's not really that good in counter pressing. So it just feels like why are we insisting on this experiment instead of putting Gakpo there? Is it because Gakpo is not ready for 90? Are we just trying till this works with Nunez? What is it?
I mean, the plus side about playing a low block team with Nunez is you don't have to worry about how many times he's going to be off sides unless it gets into your half. So, I mean, that's the plus side. I think the problem with it is like we talked about this last week, is like even when he's not scoring, he's creating opportunities just out of chaos. And like I think sometimes that's out of nothing, and sometimes it's at the expense of our shape, right? And I think like that's the problem, is like it's such a mixed bag with him, but like this is as advertised. When we got him, like everybody saw the price tag and everyone was like, oh, this dude's going to be the next great striker. This is going to be Cavani all over again. But it's like the bottom line is he is so incredibly raw. And like my worry is like, how long can we say that about him, right? Like how long can we do that? Because the fact of the matter is, and we talked about this like months ago, he's the same age as Gakpo, right? Like but you couldn't have two different career paths, right? Yeah. This kid's out of the slums, out of a very poor area, scratch clawed his way up into the second division of Spain, into Portugal, comes to Liverpool. Gakpo, family, goes to the Ajax system, one of the best youth academies in the entire world. Yeah. Comes out, blossoms out in Liverpool. It's just two entirely different players who play completely opposite of each other with opposite experiences, same age, completely similar trajectories, but I think in a very, very different manner. And I think where you get all the technical proficiency in education that Gakpo has, Nunez has none of it. He has none of that. He has none of that sort of traditional schooling. And I think that there is just a lot more resources that are going to go into getting Nunez to do the things you need Nunez to do. And like for everything that Nunez is good at, I still remain unconvinced. I think Nunez has the ability to be one of the best strikers in the world still, but I remain unconvinced that he's a fit for this system.
I agree too, and I don't know, like you can still see the impact he does, Gally, right? And I understand that numbers-wise, you look at the numbers, goal contributions, when he's on the pitch, and all that kind of stuff. But aren't we like, if it's all about confidence and him getting like the run of games and all that kind of stuff, are we not doing him a disservice by putting him out in these situations where we know it's not really suitable for him? I think you could easily tell that these games are not ideal games for him, and we're hurting his confidence more as opposed to bringing him in afterwards where it's okay for him to cause any kind of havoc. Whereas in the beginning of the game, we want to play our game. We want to play our system. You come in the last 20 minutes where we're chasing a goal, you can go crazy and like run around and like shift defense all over the place. And it's acceptable and it's approved and looked forward to. But we're putting him in these situations, I feel like, where we're not really getting the best out of him anyway.
Yeah, I don't disagree in a match like Palace or a team that's playing the low block while you're playing them out there, while you're starting. I genuinely don't disagree. The manager clearly has his reasons for his change in philosophy of who his number one center forward is at the club. And like Jurgen Klopp isn't playing. I do not know what's going on in that hotel room. They just shut off the lights on.
I think there's like an airstrike coming, so he had to turn off the light. I don't know what.
It's like, earlier I figured like someone knocked him, was like bringing towels or something, so he just dropped off. So they didn't think he was running some type of OnlyFans through the hotel room or something. They were going to look for it.
Room service might be there, yeah.
Room service. Different type of room service. But no, there he is. He's back. Look.
I never
wanted to hear us still. Sorry.
I could hear you guys all the time. If I was on OnlyFans, I wouldn't be working full time.
Oh, I'd hope not. Well,
actually, I probably would.
You'd probably be paying people. You'd probably be like sending out ads, sending out money to others. But no, I listen. The thing with Nunez is baffling to me. It is frustrating. I think the Jota injury just like almost heightens it, because I think it changes what Klopp can really do, because I think he doesn't have as many chances to change things afterwards. Like, I think there's an argument that you could be playing Gakpo and Nunez at times and giving Diaz a little bit of a break, because Diaz does a lot of running with very little end product. And for all we talk about Nunez for running around and acting crazy and sometimes not doing everything, like Nunez's chaos leads to goals often. It does. The stats bear that. Diaz's chaos, and that's what he does too. He runs around and ends up on the right and on the left, and they lead to a lot of like wayward shots and turning the ball over. I think it was someone in the comments mentioned Diaz slows down our attack. I think it might have been Sir Z earlier was mentioning that when we were talking about it. I've noticed that at times where he wants to cut on the inside. He wants to bring the ball back inside. It's like he gets confused on, like he won't send Simicast when he's finally making the overlap run to the touchline. He doesn't send him on that. He cuts back to the inside and he tries to do this 1-2, and he's trying to do it with like Gravenberch, and it just, there were times where it's like Diaz almost felt like, I do feel like at times this attack feels disconnected. And I know I've said this before, the one thing that feels connected right now is Mo and Nunez. Whether it's working or not, it feels connected, like they feel like it's connected. And I think Klopp likes that part of it. And I think Gakpo offers him, similar to Gomez, the ability to change from 2 to 3 different positions on the pitch. He can change his tactics, and he can put Gakpo at different places to make real impact. And I think that's what makes him more valuable as a sub currently, while we only have 4 of them.
See, I personally think like it's like Gakpo's absence kind of hurts Diaz in that sense. There are a lot of times where he uses that overlap almost as a dummy, which is all fine and dandy. Mane used to do the same thing. You kind of cut to the middle. You need a body there to bounce the ball off of and do that give and go and like cut into the box. That's where a player like I think Gakpo would come in handy. You're not doing that with Nunez. And I feel like that's where the attack always gets stuck because there's not that player there. So you suddenly have Diaz just keep running towards the right with the ball and like suddenly ends up right next to Mo and then just gives it to Mo and runs back. But is it the price tag that is forcing us at this point, do you think, Bickler, or is it the raw talent? And you can't say both.
I don't think it has anything to do with the price tag. I really don't. I don't think that like Jurgen's usually one that gets bought into that too much. I do agree with Gally. I do think there is some obvious like connection between Nunez and Salah, and I think that like, you know, Salah, whatever works, whatever gets the ball consistently in Salah's possession in dangerous parts of the pitch is going to take priority, right? Even if that comes at the expense of other pieces. And so, yeah, I think that's probably why we're seeing Nunez. I'll probably die on the hill that I think Gakpo is a much better fit for the system. But, I mean, you can't really deny the body of evidence in terms of, like, statistically the output that Nunez has on this team. And like, we talk about statistically, like, his, like, goal involvements for 90, right? Like, and how outrageous that stat is. But then we also talk about things that aren't statistically related. Like when we talked about how he was always the ball before the ball that led to the goal, right? Like, and so like, how do you sit a player that's both of those things? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you justify it, even if he doesn't maybe know what offsides is? Like,
no, you
like,
watch the game where he stops the attack being off multiple times, or he can't take any part of interplay where you're not creating anything for minutes at a time because you do not have that person creating space. Because he does not. I mean, we always thought of it like he would be the guy to suddenly, you know, like swing to the left and stuff like that. He does not do that as much anymore. He just feels like he's the body in the middle. And I feel like we're kind of slowing ourselves down by putting a guy over there and kind of expecting something different to come from him when that's not really his strength.
I don't disagree it's not his strength, but something the manager is telling him to do is tactically getting done or he wouldn't keep playing. We've been watching this manager for 7-8 years. I mean, we all screamed to play Bobby last year at times, and he wasn't playing him. And we knew that he could give what we needed. There were times, and there were times 2 years ago where he started playing Jota over Bobby and through the center at times. We'd get frustrated, and we all know what the value is, but Klopp plays the guys he obviously thinks. And I know you don't want to hear this, Timuchin, but there was another stat that came out that defensively we give up less goals with Nunez on the pitch than with Gakpo. Every number, to Paul's point. I know you're going to say, well, these stats, but these stats are real. Like these are.
Yeah,
He
but
has
okay,
played
the
more.
stats are real, but is that because of Nunez? The guy can clearly not press as well as.
No, but you're saying it starts and ends with it not working. Something about when he plays actually makes this team play better because they've gotten more points from positions of matches when he's on the pitch than when he's not. And there's a reason that Klopp, when both guys were healthy, was going with Nunez. And arguably, when we were playing, the best we played this year was end of September, early October, between the league and Europa. That's when Nunez was playing his best football for us. So some of that does go together. I do think there is something there for that. I don't disagree with you. He is an enigma, and he is painful at times to root for. But, like, yes, he's hit the post 5 times. That is a ridiculous number.
Yeah.
In 16 games. Like, an inch or two either direction. He's got 3 more goals, and he's 3rd in the league in scoring, and everyone's just ranking up and like going crazy.
I really don't care about it. I mean, everybody makes a huge deal out of his misses. Mo misses, Holland misses, everybody misses. I really don't care about his misses as much, and I don't make that as big of an issue. To me, it's just the eye test when you watch this team and how efficient and smooth that attack functions when he's in there, attacking wise and defending wise. So I think that's kind of like my issue. I feel like he should not be the one starting when we play against a team like Palace, who's going to sit back. I'd rather have Gakpo start and then have Nunez come off the bench, or find ways to have both of them on the pitch. Obviously, it was not going to be happening this week, but that's a good go-to at the end of the games. And I think, lack of Jota over there does affect it a lot, because now, we used to talk about the depth and how we can change things off the bench attacking wise. But really, you're down to one guy you can put on the front line. A lot of options for attacking midfield like Elliott and stuff, which we didn't even get to talk to. But actually, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's crazy. We get 52 minutes in. We don't talk about the guy who got the game-winning goal. We spend 20 minutes talking about all of Szoboszlai's problems. And at what point is Harvey Elliott going to raise his hand and go, I know you paid $80 million for that guy, but I've outplayed him since the beginning of August. Can I have a chance to play that position that you gave me last year?
I feel like sometimes this does go to the price, or I think it sometimes goes to the fact that some players are just better coming off the bench and not more effective, either because the team is, because they fit that system when we're going all force attack, or they're going against a more tired defense that's having to have rotated by then, like you had the subs and stuff like that. But so that brings me to Thursday's game. I know this is Bickler's favorite topic because he still talks about the Jota injury. In this game, that means nothing, Bickler. Do you just trot out a bunch of kids, maybe call me up for a spot? Or we always talk about how some of these guys do need the run of games. Do you still get them out there, even if it is risking injury?
I mean, I feel like I've been repeating myself for like years. So like, I'm not putting out anything that jeopardizes my season. Like I'm not.
So Elliott, are you putting Elliott out there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. I think you kind of have to in some ways. So there are only so many people on the squad, but
yeah, I mean, I'm starting all my rotational players: Endo, Harvey, probably Curtis Jones or Gravenberch, depending on who you want to march out there. So I'm not saying like you put in all dudes with like 99, 98, 96 jersey numbers, but like I think this is a great opportunity for somebody like Connor Bradley to get bedded in and get some minutes. Like the young fullbacks that we should be playing with some minutes. Ben Doak should be out there. Like those are the types of players that I would want to see in a match like this. That being said, it'll be Mo Salah and Nunez and Diaz up top.
That was my question to you, Gally. I think we're all in agreement that's what we would like to see. What will we see, do you think?
I think we will see in the midfield. I think we should and will see Endo, Elliott, and Gravenberch, because I thoroughly expect that we will have, because I think we will have Curtis Jones, Szoboszlai, and McAllister against United. Like there's no world I don't see Curtis Jones starting against Manchester United. Type of guy you want, type of head you want. Can't believe I'm saying those things in a row about Curtis Jones. I want the maturity of Curtis Jones in my midfield. Fuck, what happened to us, people? If you told me I was going to say this, if you told me I was going to say this in 2018, I would have told you that, like, you could have, like, been like, and you're going to hold up a sign that says, "Can I have your jersey, please, Curtis?" Like, seriously, like, that's a crazy conversation I just said out loud. But I think Jones, McAllister, and Soboslai start. I do think that it is a Gakpo. I think it should be Gakpo and Diaz, Mo, maybe Gakpo, Nunez, Mo against United. But what I expect we'll get is Doak, possibly Nunez through the middle, and somebody out on the left. Maybe the Scanlon kid, maybe somebody else. Like, I think you should be giving the youngsters the shots up front in this match. I would be playing the Bradleys. Probably start Joe Gomez at right back, I guess, because you don't have another one and a kid that you love. But Kwanzaa, it's dicey here because you want to be competitive, but you don't want to chance anything with United and
Arsenal. Like, do any of us really care? I know it's all about the winning mentality, blah blah blah. But do we really care the result of this game? Will it affect the United game at all? Especially if you go out with all kids. Like, already, it's almost like when we played Villa or whoever that we played. So,
I'll say this. No, because it's United. No, because it's a match that requires nothing to get up for, in my opinion. I do think there is something about momentum and not, just mailing it in and having a terrible performance and then trying to show up on Sunday to play Palace in a 9 a.m. game. You're playing Manchester United at Anfield with the chance to freaking maybe get another one of their managers sacked. Like, they're going to be up for it. The crowd's going to be up for it. So for United, I don't think it matters as much. I think in Klopp's eyes, though, as he proved on that awful afternoon against Michelin, when he got 3 guys hurt by halftime, I genuinely believe that's SOB believes every single minute of every match matters. And if you play poorly, you'll play poorly the next time out. And I think for that, we're going to see a team play pretty spirited football on Thursday because I think he also didn't like the performance they had on Sunday.
Sergi says, I would play Linders, the canteen stuff, plus kids on Thursday. Would not play for the first team defenders, keeper, or forwards. I'm the same way, but I do feel it's going to be a little bit of a blend. You are going to have a couple of people to lead the line. Like, one guy up top to lead that line, one guy in midfield to, what I mean? And Gravenberg could be that guy, I guess, for a midfielder, or you have Ando with the experience and stuff. I just hope we don't have like Van Dijk and stuff like that out there because that's not a good ordeal. Nicholas says there's always a reason to go to 7-0 United. Would United, obviously they have like a huge Champions League game, and that will play a big factor on how the rest of their week goes, which, on paper, it doesn't look like it'll go good. But how much will they be up for it, do you think, Bickler? Knowing their situation, and it's almost like this team has semi-quit on the manager, it feels like. Do they kind of take advantage of it, knowing, like what Gally said? They were like, hey, if you want to get rid of him, this is the day, everybody, kind of a thing, knowing that's usually the last game for every United manager.
I don't think United supporters even know what they're going to get out of that team week to week. I think they could come to Anfield, lose, and I don't think they sack Ten Hag. Because, like, where do they go from there? Like, I really don't think – I think there's going to be a little more patience with Ten Hag, but, like, it's going to be interesting. I think the thing with United is, they're not going to have their captain, Bruno Fernandes, who's on suspension. That may be addition by subtraction.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Yeah,
right. So like that'll be interesting to see. But like the thing with United is like they go down, they concede a goal, and you can watch heads drop. Right, that's their problem. So like for me, if I'm Liverpool, I'm coming out with everything I got for at least the first 15 minutes. I'm playing heavy metal football for 15 minutes, and I'm gonna do everything I can to get one in those first 15. And then if you can do that, I think you got them on skates going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you start with heavy metal the first 15 minutes, that's the kind of team that you can play classical music
Yeah.
rest of the way, and like you should be just fine and like cruise through because they do give up, they stop tracking back and stuff. And
Yeah.
honestly, but at the same time, how we play somehow suits them in terms of the only strength they have is they can kind of counter. The only games they do well in our game is actually where they do counter. When they have possession is when they really suck.
Yeah, but I think the issue with that though is without Fernandez playing like dropping deep and picking out the passes, he's usually the one that springs them on those counters, or he makes the incisive pass. When they had Erickson, or whatever it would be now, the corpse that was Christian Eriksen, because his career is done. They got like 2 months of Christian Eriksen. They were like, look at this guy we signed. Everyone in the league could have had him. And then a month later, they were like, holy shit, this guy's
That's
old.
why nobody wanted
that. And no one can understand a word he says. But like when they really need a playmaker in midfield and they don't have one. So like, here's the thing, like Mason Mount, abject failure. Amrabat, way too slow. If we think Endo's slow, Amrabat is like the slug version of Endo. You got Casemiro still out for weeks. You're literally running the whole team. The heart and soul of the team right now runs through Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire's renaissance. Like literally, that's what the United supporters. I read a guy the other day say Harry Maguire is United's player of the season. And he was seriously writing an article on it. And he wasn't that far off when you read it. It was like, actually, it's not that far off. As long as he's burying Rashford, which he has, I can't see a match against Bayern is going to make this any better. I don't disagree with Paul that they give him a chance. I do think if they are on an absolute shellacking, and they're eliminated from Europe and they don't even qualify for the Europa League parachute, that's a hard sell to United. When you also then look back to their supporters and be like, we lost at home to Bournemouth. We got throttled by Bayern. And Liverpool just did us once again and stuffed us in a locker. What are we doing here, people?
And there's no money from Europe now if you're out.
No money from Europe. And let's be honest, you start looking at this table. I said it, me and Paul talked about it on our Premier League show. I don't see United getting anywhere near the top 5. So in my opinion, their only shot at being in Champions League football next year is winning the Europa League.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're doing that even if they get parachuted into the Europa League. So we're talking about a team. And you know what? I heard this guy say this today, and I hate saying it because it's like poking a little fun at the United supporters, but let's do it anyways, right? Here's the thing. United supporters are all up in arms because 1 week you beat Chelsea and the next week you lose to Bournemouth. And 1 week you show up and you play good against Arsenal and you get a result. And the next week you lose to Crystal Palace. Newsflash. That's what happens to middling mid-table teams that don't have a direction and only have so much talent. You're no longer a top 5 talent side. So you can't actually think of yourself anymore as like a top lap table team. They have every chance to finish between 10th and 7th as they do to finish between 13th and 11th.
Yeah,
They're
I think
not
it was
that good.
Brian was saying like the Jekyll and Hyde thing, and that's what it is, and that's exactly the inconsistency comes from. Even Ten Hag said, we're not good enough to be consistent, and that's, as United fans might not like hearing it, but it's probably like an honest take on the situation they're at right now. We'll definitely talk a lot more about it throughout the week, and I'm sure we'll talk about it with the panel on Wednesday nights. I can't wait to talk to Alan from Arsenal because he was gloating the last 2 weeks about being top of the league, so that should be a good conversation. Bickler, let's get an early prediction, though, for Thursday.
Oh, God. Let's go. Shoot, I'll be optimistic. I'll go 3-0.
Damn. Look at Bickler, man. That hotel is like, must be the hotel.
Yeah, it's a recreational state. I'm positive about everything right now.
The hotel is in California, people. So yeah, there you go. Yali, what do you have for a prediction?
The match is going to be extremely boring, uneventful, and I will say it's 2-1. and it has really nothing in it. I really believe it's going to be like a nothing burger of a match because I think we're going to play it that way. We'll get the win, but it won't be anything to write home about. And I don't think you'll be able to take anything out of it with what will happen come Sunday.
Brian is going with the Timuchin special of 3-1, but I am going with a 3-2. I think it's just going to be kind of like a crazy game. It's going to be way too open. I think they're going to know that we're there too. They're going to go for it, but then we still have quality to kind of hit them on the counter and stuff like that. So, but I actually like watching these games, especially if there's going to be a lot of kids involved to see like how they do and what the potential is and stuff. I know it's not a gauge, but still it's interesting to watch. But, well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next Monday, and maybe there'll be another 3 points. We'll be talking about a huge United win, hopefully. As always, thanks to all those listening, following, commenting. If you are following us on Facebook or if you're listening to us on as a podcast, do not forget to head on over to YouTube and subscribe to us over there as well, where we have a lot more content regularly throughout the week, really. But next up will be Wednesday morning, right? It's Wednesday morning show. I know your guys' Premier League show should be going on air tomorrow too. But these are all on tomorrow. YouTube as well as Facebook when we post it on our social media. But have a great week, everybody, and we'll